You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
In 2011, the famous art auction house Sotheby's in London put up for auction a painting by the artist Nat Tate. It was entitled Bridge Number 114. The winning bid for the painting was £7,250. It's not like an earth-shattering amount of money, particularly by the standards of contemporary art auction houses, but it was well above what one might expect the work of Nat Tate to go for. It's probably a record for a Nat Tate painting, because Nat Tate was not a real artist. And I don't mean that in some way as to insult a person that I think is less than a brilliant artist. I mean, he was not a real artist because Nat Tate was fictional.
I feel like who art ed?
We'll try to spice it.
Who art ed? Mr. Wood art ed me.
Good. Either way, it's ambiguous. It works on so many levels.
I know.
That's off to a great start.
Welcome to Who Arted, where we explore visual arts in an audio medium. I'm your host, Kyle Wood, and for this week's Fun Fact Friday, we're looking at the curious case of Nat Tate. Now, Nat Tate was an imaginary person. He was simply the character of a novel written in 1998 by the Scottish writer William Boyd. What was interesting is the novel was presented as a biography, often referred to as an art world hoax, but Boyd has said that he did not intend it to be a hoax. It was just a book that he wrote in the biography format as a sort of interesting way of presenting his fictional character. But the late, great David Bowie, at a dinner party, supposedly presented this book and sort of tried to pass it off as a real-life biography of a forgotten artist. So it tells the story of Nat Tate as an abstract expressionist artist who destroyed 99% of his work. And in the end, he dies tragically, leaping into the water, and he is never found. The work is, as I said, a work of fiction, but David Bowie decided to hold a launch party just before April Fool's Day, 1998, and he read extracts from the book. All other guests like John Richardson, who was a Picasso biographer, talked about Tate as if he were a real person, talking about how Nat Tate was friends with Picasso and Braque and other historical figures. So they sort of presented it as if it were a real biography of a real artist. And so, as I said, the book title, Nat Tate, An American Artist, 1928 to 1960, it has the look and feel of a true biography of a lesser-known artist, and it was presented initially as such. I think probably largely as a joke, but it did gain a little bit of traction. At least some people did believe that Nat Tate had been a real person and a real artist for a little while. I think it only lasted about a week before a journalist from New York reported that, some big names in the art world had been victims of this literary hoax. I don't think it lasted that long as a hoax. And as I said, I don't know that it was really intended to be a grand hoax in the art world. I think it was just a unique portrayal for this novel by William Boyd. But it has spawned all sorts of other work. Since then, Nat Tate has been a minor character in another novel in 2002 and a 2010 TV adaptation. There are, despite Nat Tate's non-existence, there are notable works by Nat Tate. We have surviving works, including Portrait of K, Bridge Number 122, one unnumbered bridge drawing, and Bridge Number 114, The piece, as I said, in 2011, it went on auction at Sotheby's, where real people were willing to pay real money for the real artwork created by an imaginary artist. This concludes this week's episode of Who Arted? If you found this tolerable, please like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. You can find images of the work being discussed this week and every week in the show notes, on Twitter at WoodArtEd, and the website whoartedpodcast.com. Podcast done.